Yo, what's up guys? Lightwater here, making another video for Dragonflight. Today is going to be Holy Priest, and sun is about to come up, but I think I'm done with it. I'm not necessarily like 100% satisfied. There was a lot of math and stuff, and there were some changes, but I feel like I know it well enough. And I could like fuss all day about the numbers and just keep grinding and grinding and grinding and replicating things, but I don't know. I'm not a robot. I got close enough. I understand the relationship between the abilities, the talents. I didn't put nearly as much work into deciphering the exact HBS of each talent. I just kind of like looked at it, thought to myself, looked at my math, you know, did some quick calculations, figured out what the ballpark area of it is, and then put my best kind of guesstimate. So it's by no means perfect, but the reason why I didn't care as much about the talents is it was pretty clear like what was going to be good, and so I spent the time on like the 3 tough decisions towards the end of the tree, and that was pretty much it. Maybe this is like a case of like me just playing Holy Priest the most out of all the healers. I just feel a lot more comfortable just kind of making some, you know, guesses, but yeah, in a way it was nice and refreshing to theorycraft a class that I know better than any other class. I mean, Holy Priest is like my bread and butter. I usually play it the most. I think it's, in my opinion, I actually think Holy Priest is like the best designed healer in the game. I know people are gonna think that's a cap, but it's got, you know, it's got a few flaws here and there, but in my opinion, like, it has a nice core game system, which is the Holy Words, and I like its passives a lot. And I think if the other healers had more interesting sort of throughput, kind of core identities, they'd be a lot better off, personally. But whatever, I digress. Here we go. Let's put this on there. Talk about some things. So the first thing I want to talk about with Holy Priest is they still have this aura thing, and I didn't really factor in this video or my theory crafting, but they did receive a 5% nerf to like most of these spells. Some spells they didn't, like the where's it at? The talent that you. I don't think Lightwell got nerfed, and I also don't think Power Word Life got nerfed, which aren't really that big of a deal because you weren't going to use Life well anyways. Although, after I tested it, it's a lot better than the numbers say they are, which is really weird. So Lightwell doesn't actually do what it says. It's kind of weird. I tested it a lot. And Power Life, I mean, you were already going to use pretty much whenever someone was low. So, again, I've just... maybe I'm cutting corners, but I'm just not doing exact math for stuff that doesn't change your gameplay at all. It just doesn't seem worth it to me when I'm gonna have to do a bunch of other healers, and you know, it just, I don't know. Maybe I'm losing my touch. Who knows? But anyways, what you see in front of you, I guess I could reduce my cam a little bit. By a little bit, I mean a lot. This is probably going to be the talent build that I go with, personally. I'll explain it all later, but I figure I'll just put it at the front of the video now, so you don't want to watch like an hour. Let's see, where do I want to start? I guess we could quickly go over the talents, and then kind of get into spells and stuff. So yeah, Renew, Spell Magic, Shadow Fiend. I mean, this whole side here, I mean, this is just Shadow or Death stuff. I did do the math for a couple of these talents just to see if there's anything that could be good, like Vampiric Embrace or, you know, some Void Shield fuckery. Just, I even looked at Mind Games. I mean, you know, so like, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something, but didn't Mind Games used to give mana? And I did not see, yeah, I don't see anything that like changes mana gains. I don't know if I'm like crazy, if like maybe it's just not listed here, but if it doesn't give mana, guys, and it's just this amount of healing, and I think they actually nerfed how much damage it does. I don't know if they nerfed the healing, but in the last patch they definitely nerfed the damage. Anyways, if it doesn't give mana, it's useless. Void Shift doesn't actually heal, it just swaps percentages. I mean, I guess it does the heal for the lower percentage, but it's a 5-minute cooldown, so it's probably like a good raid thing to take, but as far as like parsing or doing HPS, I don't think it's going to be good at 5 minutes, but you could take it. Although, I mean, it's going to come at the cost of probably Prove Fade, which is not that big of a deal. Okay. Let's go down this way. We'll talk about the things that I actually got. Obviously, Dispel Magic and improve Purify. You know, you got to do some Dispels. Prove the healing of Flash Shield. This is important because even though we're not going to hardcast Flash Shields, we're still going to Surge a Light proc. So, this kind of has a little bit of play. I tested this, Focus Mending. It does actually work on, like, Salve Mendings, like the first one, too. And, so yeah, I mean, there's that. Holy Nova, it's not worth casting, did the math for it, but it is worth casting when you Rhapsody it. So every 100 seconds you're going to cast a 20 stack Holy Nova. You know, something to do that's a little different every 100 seconds, so it's kind of cool, I guess. Protecting Light, I guess this is kind of a way to give yourself a 10% DR, which in the highest mythic rating was actually pretty much required. But for 99% of you, probably not even useful. Feather, you need to be able to move as Priest. I don't know, Blessed Recovery or the other one, who cares? Like, a lot of these just don't matter that much. Mass Dispel is kind of important. Power Infusion with the talent is pretty important. But, man, there's actually you actually need to use your PI with how Priest works now. At least Holy. And it's really unfortunate, but hopefully, you know, I mean, and unfortunately, you need to use your PI when a proc happens, which is going to be really hard to try to coordinate with a raid member. But at the end of the day, I mean, you're probably just going to have to PI some random raid member, and hopefully you can just take advantage of the PI. But it would help you so much if you're able to PI somebody when you want, and then they pop their cooldowns. But I'll get in that in a little bit. Unwavering Will, I mean, this is just nice because, see, it doesn't say it on here, but it affects heal for Holy Priest, so that's really nice. Twist of Fate, you know, whatever, right? I mean, it's just HBS, free HBS. Divine Star won out over Halo. I was actually thinking that because of all the buffs over here that you aren't going to use either one. But if the group rate is stacked, and you can hit at least 6 targets, Divine Star's pretty damn good. Binding Heal, I mean, this is basically just going to be like Leech, right? I mean, you're just going to be spam healing yourself as you heal the raid members. But, I mean, I still calculate it as 20%. Surge of Light. Surge of Light procs can proc themselves. They can proc off everything pretty much. It's the only way you'll ever cast Flash of Light, except for maybe one scenario, and I'll explain that in a bit. And Better Desperate Prayer. This is a HBS thing technically. Power Word Life. I actually really like this spell a lot. I don't know if anybody ever played Guild Wars 1, but it reminds me of a spell in Guild Wars 1 that had like half-second cast time, which was rare in Guild Wars 1, and it did like 300% healing if the target was below like 25% health, and it would like have no cooldown. It was like I forgot, it was called like, I'm never gonna remember it now, but this reminds me of this spell. Anyways, it's a really cool idea. I think a Holy Priest is a really cool class for something like this too. I love the massive payoff versus like the massive like whiff, right? You know, one literally does like 5 times as much healing and has a 3rd cooldown. You know, it's like a factor of like 15 times improved, versus if you fuck it up, then it's, you know, it's on this long ass cooldown and didn't do hardly dick for healing. You know, I love that. It's this really fun minigame that you get to just like, you know, spaz out on as a Holy Priest. And sometimes as a Holy Priest, people find Holy Priest kind of boring. I don't, but this will just be like another cool thing in addition to the way we played before. And then, you know, you get your little Holy Nova minigame every 100 seconds. So between these two things, like that's enough spice for me personally, like to make it fun. Just a little something extra to do. Okay, let's get to the actual like spec here. You're pretty railroaded right off the bat, obviously. I think it's really cool that you don't have to get chastised, and I probably won't be. Technically, I should probably do the math on chastise. Actually, I think I did. I don't think it's worth casting chastise to try to proc divine image. But if you do take divine image, maybe there's a world where you take chastised over like afterlife. That's about it, right? I mean, you could theoretically do that. Mix in some damage at probably no loss of HBS because you're fishing for divine image procs, but we're getting kind of deep in the weeds here at this point. Okay. So yeah, I mean, you kind of have to take Prayer of Healing to get Sanctuary, otherwise I really wouldn't take this. There is actually only one situation you'll ever cast Prayer of Healing, guys, and it's the same situation that you would have only casted it in the last like 6 years, which is when you get innervated or when you are in spirit form. That's the only time you spam Prayer of Healing. It's so sad that this spell is just so trash. I just don't understand who's doing the math over there at Blizzard, but it's just this ain't it, Chief. I don't know. If you heal, you know, 5 injured targets with Prayer of Healing, it should probably be more efficient than heal spamming in theory. But whatever. So yeah, I'm just never gonna use this spell, except for those situations. Obviously, Holy War Sanctuary. I did all the math on all of these talents because I hate my life, and surprise, surprise, I'll explain it. I guess, and maybe I should explain it in detail because otherwise there might be another manifesto. But COH is trash. These talents are trash. They don't come anywhere near to buffing it enough. I mean, Prayerful Litany is like one of the funniest like talents I've ever seen in my life. Ah yes, I would like to heal one person of my 5 for only 30% more. You know, it's like, oh, okay. So let's see, that's 6% buff to the spell as a whole. And if you know anything about Holy Priest, buffing these spells that activate Holy Words don't mean shit, because you're in it for the Holy Words, not for the spells that you know, get them off cooldown. But whatever. Prayer Circle, Healing Chorus. I mean, the only time you'd use Prayer Circle is if you get like innervate botted your whole fucking life. I mean, I guess if you have like 1 million innervates, maybe you could go Prayer Healing. I guess, right? Like, I guess some things go out the window when you just get 1 million innervates. Who knows? But yeah, all these talents, they do a lot of work, but like they're buffing spells that are just inherently bad. So you know, it's like weird. Anyways, here's the good spells. We got Cosmic Ripple, of course. Great spell, great passive. Afterlife, Renewed Faith. Renewed Faith is kind of an interesting one because we wouldn't have normally gotten this unless we talented into it before. And because how the talents work, you never got it. But it's kind of like a weakened version of it. It's kind of hard to get this off. Also, like 6% is like such a low number that you can't really play around it. Like it doesn't like buff anything in particular, and your playstyle would already be the playstyle. Like it's gonna be a heal playstyle, guys. Nothing's changed. So the heal playstyle is already like the playstyle that would probably take advantage of theoretically targeting renews. So that could be a fun little mini game if you have the choice to. I guess you could chase renews for fun, for the 6%, but it's not really like. I mean, you know, like you're gonna be just overhealing because you're mastery at that point, anyways. Like, just heal the lowest health targets. Like, you've got Twist of Fate. You're never gonna like change who you're targeting as like a spot healer, right? Through a put healer. You don't want to like heal a higher health target because it has a renew. It's just not worth it. 6% is too low. Like, it's not like 15 or 20%, you know. Trail of Light. This is pretty much the same as how it was last expansion. Like literally the same exact numbers. Divine Hymn. We get Enlightenment, which is nice. Enlightenment's actually the best, probably on Holy Priest over any other healer, because Holy Priest is just a set of gears that turn a gear, right? So at the top, the big gear that we're all trying to turn is Holy Word Salvation. And then there's two gears next to it, which is Holy Word Sanctuary and Holy Word Serenity. And then those gears are only turned by a bunch of other small little gears that all take mana. So mana turns the whole class around, right? So Holy Priest is one of those few examples where mana does equal increased HPS at like a pretty linear amount. You know, I don't remember the exact, like I already did the math for it, but yeah, I have it listed. I guess I could look it up. Let's see. Did I write it for alignment? I think I did. Somewhere in here. Yeah, so 10% mana regeneration is almost 4% increased HPS, which is pretty nice, right? So it's kind of, I guess you could kind of think of it as 10% mana equals 4% increased HPS. So it's like a 4 to 10 or, you know, 2 to 5, whatever, right? 40% ratio. Benediction, 12% chance to leave a renew on each strike it heals. This is like almost a renew on average when you factor in all the other palm talents. So obviously a renew on average is just free healing, plus, you know, you've got renewed faith, lots of pandemic fun when you salve. Yeah, it just worked out to be higher HPS than other choices. I mean, the only real choice you have, because you're not going with this whole side, right? And you're not going damage stuff, is the only choice that you had this entire time was, do you want this talent, or this talent, right? Like your last point. And it just so happened that like these are pretty interchangeable, and you don't really care about Palm doing more. All you care about it is that it does bounce, right? You don't care about how much it actually heals for. That's not why Palm does so much. So yeah, Everlasting Light's decent, you know. Again, this class is gonna probably spend its mana at like a pretty decent curve down, and so you should end the fight at 0 mana. So Everlasting Light will eventually help you more and more and more as like the fight goes on, and that's usually when there's like more healing anyways. So I just considered like, okay, you'll spend like half your life at like, or like your whole life at half mana on average, you know. So it's kind of like 7.5%. Although it doesn't necessarily go down linearly, but you'd have to do a lot of testing to figure that out. I looked up some like forums and stuff on it. Some people were saying like, oh, it actually goes past. That was like old information when it was an Azurite trade, I think. And so I did some testing and it did cap at 15%. But yeah, I mean, it's something you can test. Either way, it's like a key node to get you over here, right? So it's not like you can really just be like, oh, I'm not gonna get it. You know, that's like the illusion of choice. So Gales of Song, which is a really weird name because I almost feel like it should be called Song of Gales, but yeah, I mean, this is really good for the raid, but like not really that great for you. I mean, sure, Divine Hymn heals for more, that's nice. You know, it's just the other talents do so much work. I mean, it's fairly interchangeable with Prismatic Echoes. So the math is something like, with the, so I tested class that's like 24% mastery, 20% getting buffed by Prismatic Echoes. Obviously, I don't have it as 2 out of 2, right? So basically, somewhere around 22-24% mastery, it breaks even with 1 point into Gales of Song. But if you're really good about using your Divine Hymn and like chasing it with like a salve or something, then you should just put the point in Gales of Song, right? But as far as like the other points, you really can't take them out. You need everything else, and they're all pretty strong. So I guess if the fight doesn't need like, no, because you need the interconnector to over here. I mean, there's not really much you can change, sadly, like because you need the points, and you can't dump Trail of Light. You obviously already need Divine Hymn. You need Enlightenment. Benediction slaps pretty hard. There just isn't other points that you can really drag besides this one and still connect down here, right? So, okay. Prayer of the Virtuous is insanely good because of these down here. So I'll just skip the explanation until we get down there. Pontifex, very good. This actually works with salve. I don't know why. So you should never cast salve without having 2 stacks and have its healing increased by 20%. It's a no-brainer. Also, for the most part, as long as you stack a respectable amount of crit, this should be up for every Holy Word. There's no reason why a Holy Word should ever get cast without being buffed by Pontifex, pretty much, unless you have 2 Holy Words coming off cooldown just immediately. Obviously, salve was a really good choice. Now, here's the crazy part. If you take Divine Image, Apotheosis actually came kind of close. Yeah, surprisingly. But, man, losing salve and raid is just a fucking... It's impossible. It's what all of my math's based off of. You know, it's like impossible to like separate. I would have to spend so much time almost creating a second Theorycraft sheet just to figure out the difference between a salve priest and a Apotheosis priest, and it wouldn't even be worth it because I already know the answer. Even with Divine Image, Apotheosis can't beat salve. It's just not a fair fight. Like, there's just no way. I mean, salve is just hilarious. Also, it just, with the way everything works, and I'll explain in a second, it's just too good. Like, it got reinforced. Like, if this side didn't exist, it would be like pretty 50-50. You could actually run Apotheosis, honestly, but not because when you factor in this stuff, it's just not fair. Originally, Empowered Renew and Rapid Recovery were pretty decent, but you just run out of points and other things are worth more. So I will talk about this for a second. So Renew does apply on salve as well, instantly. It does, I want to say, so yeah, so the Empower Renew, it's not bad. Rapid Recovery, so this is deceptively actually better than what you think. So when you see its base duration decreased by 3 seconds, you might think that's a 20% nerf, but it's actually only like a 16% nerf because Renew does an instant tick and then 5 ticks. And that instant tick is buffed by the 35% if you take Rapid Recovery. So really you're getting 5 ticks instead of 6, but they're all at 35% increase. So when you math it out, it's like minus 16%, but then plus 35, and you end up somewhere around like plus 12% or something. Essentially to the spell, which is obviously larger than 10, but you know, yeah, I don't know. It's just not really worth talking because you'll never hardcast Renew in your life, ever. It's not worth it. Unless you're moving, I guess, and you just want to burn mana, or you have to because it's a high HPS fight. And you probably didn't spec into these ones, so you probably, it's like, what else are you gonna cast on the move? At least you could still fish for like Surge Light procs and shit. So your prayers necessary for this talent down here, obviously. 15% chance to not jump. When you combine this with Prayers of the Virtuous, it turns what would have normally been a 5 stack prayer of mending into an average of an 8.3 stack prayer of mending. So obviously really nice. Coming down here, Resonant Words. So it's not a bad talent, you just run out of points, and so that's why I only have 1 out of 2 in it. You just really can't get the second point in it. And the thing is, Resonant Words is kind of equal to Desperate Times, depending on the uptime of Desperate Times. But yeah, casting Holy Word increases the healing of your next heal or flash heal. So this is really good, but the problem is, again, while you will be doing a considerable amount of heals cast in a fight, you're not necessarily casting the heals because you want to heal with heal. A lot of the power comes from resetting your Holy Words. So Resonant Words is nice. I put 1 point into it rather than Desperate Times because I feel like I could be smarter and actually apply, you know, like a powered up heal as opposed to like just occasionally getting Desperate Times on people that are below 50% health. I don't know, maybe if it's a really rough fight and there's just always stuff to heal and people are always below 50%, maybe. Especially with the new HP increase they just did. But by my guesstimates, with the math and the way health bars are working out, is we are still experiencing, and we are way too high on power creep as far as healing goes per like health bars. Like some early it's always a bad sign when healers can do over half of a person's health bar on average of HBS, right? Which is like pretty much what my theory crafting has been suggesting, is that all the healers are going to be able to do in raid, if you're good, probably 100k HBS, right? And so I don't know, I think people have around like 200k, 250k life in raid. So that's pretty high, because that means 4 healers are bringing 2 people to full HP every second. And yeah, that's like, you know, normal healing. I don't know. But they just buffed the health bars, so maybe it'll be better. I hope so. I think they need to buff them more, but whatever. Anyways, Desperate Time, you do 10% more healing on targets below 50%. I mean, this is like, I did my math as if this has like a third uptime, which is probably honestly way too high. I think people are only below 50% of the health, maybe like a quarter or like a fifth of the fight, which is bad game design, but whatever. Lighter than Naru, it's not actually like that much increased cooldown reduction, but it randomly is super important because of this talent. So you need 2 out of 2 points in order to only have to cast 2 spells during Apotheosis to get your Holy Word off cooldown. And that's like the tipping point that makes this really important. Also, you need to be able to activate Divine Image, and Harmonious Apparatus sucks compared to Lighter than Naru. So even though Lighter than Naru is not like super insane, it does equal a decent amount of HPS, and it gives you access to either I guess I could explain it now. So Divine Image and Divine Word are relatively equal. Technically Divine Image has slightly more, but it's completely RNG. Whereas Divine Word you can activate when you want. Obviously you pretty much want to use this on cooldown. It's a little weird in that you're never going to cast Sanctify, you're always going to use it on Serenity. But that's what you're spamming all day anyways. I mean, the buff is just so insane, right? Flash, heal, renew, heal for 30% more, 20% increased critical strike chance, which obviously synergizes with Pontifex, but you should already be second crit anyways, so. And then cost 20% less mana. This will give you a lot more extra heals in a fight. It'll obviously buff your heals, which has great synergy with Binding Heal and Trail of Light. You know, the math works out to where they're pretty close. Now, Divine Image comes close because of the sheer amount of Holy Words you're going to be casting, and the fact that they buffed its proc chance from 20 to 25%. Now, the Divine Image spells have absolutely zero synergy with the rest of your kit, which is rather unfortunate. Which kind of probably means that it'll actually fall off as the expansion goes on, because as you gain more and more power, and we have more and more broken-ass tier, the power that will come from your actual like spells and their synergies with like your stats will mean so much more than the base spell power coefficients of Divine Image, but whatever. Either way, 25% proc chance, you're gonna see it a lot, especially every time you get a Apotheosis proc. So it's nice. It's just RNG, right? So I think I mean, it's cool, right? You have a choice, right? So if there's really good times to Divine Word with Serenity, you could just slam it. Either way, they're kind of the same thing. Like, Divine Word, you're just going to use it for Serenity, so that's just like a 15-second throughput. I mean, the 50% increase to your Holy Word's nice, but like, who cares? I don't know. It's kind of cringe because I feel like you should... I actually kind of wish it would increase the healing of your next Holy Word by a certain amount, and then determine what buff it's going to give you based off your next spellcast, not that spellcast. Because we all want to buff Sanctuary, but we actually want to get to the Serenity buff. You know, not the other way around. The Sanctuary buff is trash. That is like the smallest little baby heal ever. The only reason the Sanctuary one comes close is because Sanctuary heals for so much more than Serenity. So that 50% actually matters because you get 6 of these per fight, right? So 50% of 6 casts, that's technically like 3 extra Sanctuaries in a fight, or Serenities, and so obviously you want the Sanctuaries, but... Anyways, Harmonious Apparatus, this is better because we actually want to always cast Palm on cooldown. But again, you don't ever use Circle of Healing, so... Yikes. and no one cares about the other part. So you'd only be taking this, and it's a 2 out of 2 point thing, just so you could give Palm 4 seconds off of Sanctuary, which does do some work, but it's just not worth the 2 points when you compare it to its competition, you know? It's not even close. Searing Light's literally a DPS talent. Okay, so now we get to pretty much where all the build is focused around, which is answered prayers. The amount of work this talent does is absurd. And the amount that you're going to play around it is absurd. Like, so here's the crazy part. You get a guaranteed proc of answered prayers per salve cast. And that is really important because it's the perfect timing, right? Salve goes off, boom, you get a guaranteed proc of Apotheosis. You spend the 8 seconds, you get 2 holy words immediately, you cast them. You should be able to farm up another 1 to 2, which is immediately 4 procs of 20% increased holy word reduction, so that's 36 seconds times 4. You know, math is hard. What is that? 24 seconds plus 144 seconds, I think. Yeah, off of your salve just immediately. So your salve enters the world, you know, it's a brand new baby, you know, and then boom, immediately gets 2 minutes shaved off its cooldown, you know. It's gonna be a lot of salves. I think you should be able to get off. I mean, I think you will be able to have 3-minute salve cooldowns. I'll be honest. You should be able to see 2 in a fight. So if you're spamming hard. So yeah, it's almost so good, and depending on the timings and how things work out, that you might actually want to flash shield during this. So just for like a little bit more speed during Apotheosis. But I did the math, and it's not worth it theoretically. But if you know for a fact that extra holy word would get you 1 more in a fight, you know, like as you're progging, you kind of figure that out, then definitely go for it. Let's see what else. Obviously, if you get, you know, flash light or surge light procs during it, you'd want to do that. Also, you can make the decision, though I don't necessarily, I did the math and it really wasn't worth it, but during your Apotheosis proc, if you have this talent down here, Miracle Worker, you have additional charges, right? So let's say you just use your holy words, which is why salve got off cooldown. You salve, and then you immediately get a charge of both holy words, right? So you cast a holy word, you could do a heal to take advantage of the resonant word, cast another holy word, do another heal, and at this point, you have no holy words up. You could just spam farming abilities to get the holy words off cooldown and opt out of casting the holy words during Apotheosis, effectively giving up the mana cost, but trading in for whatever 7.2 times 4 is. What is that? 14.4, 28.8? Yeah, 28.8 seconds off another holy word. Now this would only be useful if you think you could get like another salve off, right? So you kind of just have to mess around with that. If you're going like strictly math, it's not worth it. You don't want to waste the mana. A big part of Apotheosis' value is the fact that you're casting spells for free, actually. And I know it doesn't seem like it, but you have to remember that even like every time you save mana during Apotheosis by casting free holy words, that just means more heals outside of Apotheosis, which means more holy words again, right? So it's like this vicious self-fulfilling prophecy. And again, the faster you get salve off cooldown, the faster you get to your guaranteed Apotheosis proc. And you should already be farming an Apotheosis for every minute if you have a little bit of haste and an average amount of palm heals from hitting it on cooldown. It should be like just over a minute, which means every minute you're getting a guaranteed 2 holy words plus the other I don't know, after you cast those like 5 seconds of Apotheosis, you should be able to farm up another 1, maybe like 1.3, 1.5 holy words, you know. And if you have the charges, none of that bonus time should go to waste, because it's not like you're overcapping, it just rolls on over to the next one, which is why Miracle Worker is like deceptively, it looks bad, but it's actually insane. It's like you can't skip it. Like the amount of holy words that you would have wasted by just like not perfectly lining them up, which was always the big criticism of like my theory crafting for Holy Priest back in the day, which was a decent criticism, but it was just impossible to theory craft any other way. So I always theory crafted like I had Miracle Worker essentially, but now we actually have it, so that's nice. Don't have to listen to people be like, excuse me, sir, what about over camping on your seconds with your holy words? Did you factor that in your math? It's like, well, it's actually impossible to do that, practically. Now I'm just being a little bitch, but yeah, you get the point. Anyways, did I talk about this? Oh, Lightweaver. I randomly was watching other people talk about Lightweaver. I don't know if they were like a lot of them were like 5-man healers. They all said Lightweaver was like the greatest thing that ever existed. And I'm like looking at it, and I'm reading it, and I'm doing the math for it, and I'm just not seeing it. Like, am I reading the same town as everybody else? Like, it just lowers the cast time of it and does a little bit more healing. Right? Like, that's it. Like, I don't know, I feel like, and then like, I thought, oh, maybe it stacks 2 times, and then the buff just lasts 20 seconds, you know, re-up it. I'm like, oh, that'd be insane, right? Like a permanent buff that just reduces heals, cast time by 60, and keeps its heal up by 30%, like the old flash concentration, but like on crack. And then, no, it just is 30% / 15%, and you can do 2 charges, so if you cast one, it'll take 1 charge, and cast another one takes the other charge. It's not like they stack up for double the effect or anything. So maybe I'm like missing something. I mean, you know, like the only good thing Lightweaver would be good for is like getting 2 fast heals ready for when you get your Apotheosis proc, but we can't really make it down here with points because you're already strapped for points, and everything else gives an insane healing increase on everywhere else, so that's out the window. Lightwell has been and will always be perhaps the dumbest spell that's ever existed in World of Warcraft. They did their best to help it out this time around, but I'll be honest, the issue with Lightwell is it's like this ugly stepchild that just refuses to integrate into any of the modern passives and gears with how Holy Priest works, right? Where in Lightwell is there anything about Holy Words? Nothing. Like, basically, if it doesn't mention Holy Words, it has to have insane numbers, cough cough, hint hint, power word life, or it literally just not useful. Like, you know, I mean, Holy Nova had to get buffed literally by 400% in order for me to cast it 5 times. It's for it to even be working to a rotation every 100 seconds. So unless this, you know, like, you gotta really like, it's sort of like catch-22, right? Since there's so much stuff that buffs Holy Words, you only want to get stuff that buffs Holy Words, you know? But, and, I don't know. It is what it is. I already went over Divine Image. And I went over Miracle Worker. Oh yeah, the other thing is Restitution, where you come back when you, after you've been casting for 22.5 seconds for free. When you count both of them together, it's not bad. There may be a fight where you take this and you're willing to take the loss of HBS with Miracle Worker, or you're just really, really careful about like not proccing it. If you're like a god, you could probably dump Miracle Worker and pick up Restitution if you have to for some fights, but Miracle Worker is just insane for like what's gonna happen, because there's just no way when you get the Apotheosis proc and you get both charges instantly, like in any situation, there's just no way you weren't already working your way towards Holy Words. So Miracle Worker gives you that cushion to make sure that whatever progress you had made on Holy Words before isn't lost, you know? Unless, of course, you're just randomly not casting your Holy Words off cooldown, then even Miracle Worker can't help you. You need a fucking miracle, because shit ain't working. Okay, that's the talents. Let's talk a little bit about, I guess, my fucking ugly chart. So everything in green is what you cast, everything below it you don't. And it was real simple. I organized everything by heals per mana spent, and I stopped as soon as I hit the first spell. It doesn't have a cooldown, and surprise, surprise, guys, it's heals. So Yay! It's the same expansion. You just heal the same way you did last one, with a few more twists. So yeah, obviously you got the Granddaddy. So this number, by the way, is ridiculous. 31,000% spell power for salvation, because technically it procs Apotheosis automatically, so that has to get factored into its value. You know, you got Divine Hymn, Power Word Life low. I organize these by heals per mana spent, so it starts high and gets to the low here. We're not going to use Lightwell, but I listed it anyways. Prayer of Mending. Prayer of Mending has a ridiculous thing because it's every Prayer of Mending represents like, you know, 16% along the track to getting an Apotheosis. On average. Holy Word Sanctify has salvation baked into it, as well as Serenity has salvation baked into it. So that's something you have to be aware of. Like, Sanctify represents 5% of salvation, and so does Serenity. And that's reflected in the mana cost and in the healing, because that's what they are. They are just gears that turn salvation. And then the spells below are just gears that turn these spells respectively. So that all has to be factored, and that's where a lot of the math is for Holy Priest. That's like the hardest part for people to understand. And that's why I always get so much criticism, is the math is really hard to explain, and I do a really bad job showing it and explaining it, and people do an even worse job trying to understand it. So, honestly, I think I've given up trying to explain it. I don't really want to entertain more conversations of Circle of Life. It's just going to make me angry. And prayer of healing, so, you know, it's just whatever. Like, if they're not going to understand it at this point, you know, just keep taking Circle of Life, bro. Desperate Prayer, it's obviously free, so there's why these lines are here. This is actually the wrong number now because they just buffed health total, so this will be higher, which means that the other talent that, you know, reduces the cooldown is better. So I'm gonna have to revisit that. But I don't think with how many heals we cast, there's a world where it's better than because you have a choice here, right? You would take Angel's Mercy or Binding Heals, but with like an average of like 92 heals cast in a 6-minute fight, I don't know if Angel's Mercy is gonna ever beat 20% of all of that, right? You could like math it out in theory, right? Like, because Angel's Mercy with the Light's Inspiration it's 40% of your health basically every 45 seconds, right? So you could find out how much that is and compare that to what would be 20% of, like, you know, 90 flash heals, or sorry, 90 heals. Either way, they're both just increasing how much you get self-healed for. So, like, whatever. Rhapsody at 20 stacks. This is the big Holy Nova. It's decent, you know, a little bit more efficient than just spamming heal. Divine Star, same thing. So surprisingly, Power Word Life, which is when you mess it up, is still on here because it's still decent. So even if you mess up Power Word Life, it was still mana efficient. So it's, you know, you can't really lose for winning or for losing, whatever the phrase is. I don't know. Halo's on here, but I think you would take Divine Star personally. It's more efficient, and technically you can use it more times, more healing. Healing Chorus, this is if Circle of Healing was buffed by 50% with the talent. So technically you don't take Healing Chorus, but we can show it right here. Your Renew Healing increases the healing done by your next Circle of Healing by 1%, stacking up to 50 times. If you got a 50 stack of this, then you could finally be allowed, just barely, to push Circle of Healing. It finally makes it efficient. But we're not going to take that talent because that is what we call a bad investment. That's 2 points for a spell that you're going to push once every like 15 seconds, maybe like 12 with haste. You definitely can't afford this. And you have to think about what you're losing, right? It's like, what are you going to give up over here, right? You're going to give up free renews. You're going to give up Symbol of Hope. You're going to give up 6% on your mastery to get, you know, some dog shit spell that you can push every once in a while that kind of heals. I mean, be my guest. I'm not taking that shit. And then yeah, spells heal. You just spam the living fuck out of heal. Snipe low health targets with power word, life. Cast your holy words off cooldown. You know. Divine star off cooldown. Divine hymn and salve when appropriate. Obviously, you're gonna want to salve as much as possible because a lot of this build is focused around you getting apotheoses, which a lot of its value is focused around resetting the cooldown of salve. So if salve isn't on cooldown, you're kind of whiffing. Palm on cooldown is a really important one, obviously. That's how you're farming your salves. You know, you'll do this typical shit where you put like 20 stacks of palm out before the fight starts. That's literally like 80% of an apotheosis right there. Or 66% of an apotheosis. Kind of crazy. So spite spamming because of, what was it? 2 talents? 1 talent. Was it just Surge of Light procs? I think it might have been just Surge of Light procs. Oh yeah. No, so some of this is mind game shit, but pretty much it's not like the worst to AFK spite spam just because of Surge of Light procs if you like have to do DPS, right? You don't lose too much efficiency spinning the mana on. I mean, it's only 0.2, right? And if there's ever like a trinket or something in the game that reduces mana cost, it always have like a crazier effect on smite because it only costs 0.2 mana, right? So if you get something that reduces like the cost of your spells on average by like 0.1, that would cut the mana cost of smite in half, making it like super efficient. And I know that every once in a while they do the time walking from Ulduar, and there's a Spark of Hope or whatever the trinket is that reduces base mana cost. I always get that because there's always fights that are super long. You throw that on, and smite becomes like a way to heal with Surge of Light proc. So, Circle of Healing. I mean, it's kind of close, guys. This is with like all the talents, though, right? Besides healing cores. I mean, it got within 100 of heal. So I mean, it's there. It's just couldn't make it the rest of the way. And poor Prayer of Healing is just nowhere to be found on the efficiency meter. It's better HBS obviously than heal. So when you're innervated or in spirit form, you'd spam Prayer of Healing. Lightwater plus resonant words. What was this? This was oh yeah, farming up the empowered heal from Renew, or from, it was like something, right? Like oh yeah, this was Lightweaver down here. That's right. So you would spam Lightweaver plus resonant words to get a better heal. I did the math for it. It was like a waste of time. Just not worth it. This is hardcast renews. Not worth it, sadly. I mean, it's decent. You know, if you can't take Circle of Healing on like extreme movement fights, spamming renew is going to cost you a decent amount of efficiency loss. But I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world. The rest of this stuff is just garbage. I looked at like Power Word Shield, Holy Novaing just for the sake of it. You know, Mind Games is trash. Word of Pie is trash. So, let's see. So yeah, if you guys can follow it, I listed the spells and kind of how I got the math for it. There was so much to do. It's just, I don't know. Like, I could clean it up and make it to where people could really easily understand it, but it's basically in like chicken scratch. So good luck. You just have to trust me or not trust me. I don't really care. Yeah, the Surge of Light, but the Surge of Light kept changing. Oh yeah, there are some loops I want to talk about. Okay, so a lot of this, where like it really took the energy out of me, is a lot of things buff things to buff the things to buff the things, and just in this vicious cycle. Like, let me show you, for example, at the end when I was trying to figure out what is an Apotheosis proc, right? So one of the issues is when Apotheosis procs, it gives 2 holy words. You also spam during getting other holy words. Well, because salvation is pretty much a guaranteed apotheosis, this means salvation is apotheosis, but apotheosis is a faster way to get salvation. So what happens is, Salvation is 98% on Apotheosis, which equals a number. And then each holy word technically represents 5% of the salvation. So then that means they technically represent 5% of that Apotheosis that just got added to the salvation. So then you have to increase their healing. But because their spells that you cast during Apotheosis, that increases the value of Apotheosis. And so on and so forth. And so I replicated this 3 times and changed all of the math. And I just refused to do it more than 3 times. Because each time it's like a smaller ripple, you know? Like imagine you drop a stone in the lake. The first wave is kind of big, the next one is less and less and less, you know? Whatever. I mean, and I'm sure the math isn't like perfect, but I felt like I had to do a couple ripples just to reflect how this affects things. Just to see if, like, you know, does this change things so much to the point where, like, it's not even worth casting, like, Divine Star or the 20 stack Holy Nova, and it wasn't enough to change it that much, but it's kind of close. I mean, if you wanted to teach somebody to be a good Holy Priest and make it absolutely brain dead for them, you could tell them to never cast Power Word Life or Rhapsody, right? Or even Divine Star, and they wouldn't lose that much HPS because of how insane. As long as they follow the rest, as long as they Holy Word on cooldown, you know, make sure to appropriately use their Apotheoses in Salve and Divine Hymn, they've got like 85-90% of the priest down right there. They wouldn't lose that much HPS by not doing all these other spells. So that would be my suggestion, guys, if you're trying to teach somebody who's like a newbie, or maybe if you are a newbie, is pretty much ignore this side. You know, like, don't bother trying to do the 20 stack thing. You know, forget the minigame Power Life, just cast it on cooldown or don't use it. I mean, it's definitely helpful and really cool, but, you know, and forget using Divine Star. If you're just overwhelmed with how much stuff there is in the game, just focus on spamming heals. Literally, the spell heal, you know, and casting the holy words that make sure you cast Serenity off cooldown. You're like 90% of the way to being a good holy priest. You know, make sure you salve and divine him. So, but yeah, so this ripple effect, this was a thing that happened a lot, right? Because holy words represent salve, and because heal represents, you know, holy word serenity, and so on and so forth, everything has this like trickle down effect, right? So as you buff salvation, you must also buff holy word sank and holy word serenity. But as you buff those spells, you must also buff the spells that, you know, turn those spells off cooldown and yada yada yada. So it was a lot of math. What else can I explain? This is kind of like a simulation I did of like how much healing the fight would, you know, the spec would do. Although I didn't like, this is not accurate, by the way, but it's just kind of a ballpark number. The holy words here listed are not the right amount per 6 minutes because the spell heal is not factored in how many holy words it would get off cooldown, because the math is all done with heal, like with it resetting the holy words and holy word salvation already baked in. I don't know if that makes any sense, but this is just for my eyes, basically. This doesn't really help anybody else. Some of this stuff is accurate, like how much mana you would use and like how many casts of heal you would do, but like the other ones aren't like true. Oh yeah, so I had a guess of what the talent points were gonna be, and I put my own guess before I even started, and I was only off by like 2 talents. So it was close, but yeah, this is like the stuff that just was a no-brainer. I didn't even have to do math for this. This is like the math on the talents that I thought was relevant. I didn't list how I got these numbers. Sorry, I was just being lazy and I just did them in a calculator. I did a few notes down here, but it's pretty bare bones, guys. So if you want, you can ask how I got these numbers, or you can try to figure it out on your own. If you look at what they say they do, and then you look at my spells, all the math is listed in the spells. You can try to like reverse engineer it, come up with your own percent for what you think stuff is. A lot of this was like mostly math, some guesswork, some past knowledge, but a lot of this was pretty cut and dry. Like what percents, stuff that like really sticks out is like answered prayers, say your prayers, Divine Image and Divine Word Serenity are really similar in HBS, and technically this was 6, but I bumped it down to 5 because I don't like RNG. But yeah, Divine Image was up there higher. And again, Divine Image will probably fall off as the game goes on, where Serenity will pick up. But at the start, Image is probably better. I don't know. Prismatic Echoes scales the more mastery you have. So at low mounts, it's only worth like 1-2% HBS per point, but then becomes like 2 or 4. Gale Song gains like double value if you do it before a sank. Yeah, I mean, I just have the numbers listed here. It's not like perfect. I'll link this in the video, but I mean, I guess, is there any like tips or tricks that I would suggest? Basically, you want to use your holy words before you cast Salvation. And so hopefully you aren't like holding out a bunch of holy words before Salvation. Hopefully you use your holy words. Salvation comes off cooldown. You cast Salvation. I would like probably be pre-casting a heal the second Salvation goes off, assuming there's like a bunch of raid damage going out, because you're about to get a Apotheosis proc immediately. And if you can hit a heal right when Apotheosis proc goes off, that's immediately like 28 seconds off of your next holy word. And then you could holy word, heal, holy word, heal, holy word, heal, holy word, heal in one Apotheosis, right? And that's pretty insane. Because, yeah, obviously, right? A lot of time off your Salvation. Oh yeah, I guess, you know, I could talk about it a little bit. So if you're wondering, I listed the spells and what they do with Divine Image. It's also online. I tested it, and they literally, guys, they just Control-C, Control-V, aka copy and pasted the fucking spell power coefficients from Legion over. They actually didn't change a single thing with how Divine Image works, except for bumping up its proc chance from 20 to 25%. They were like, get 5% more and call it a day. So if the numbers seem low, that's because they are, but the proc chance went up. So it's like, I don't know, I guess it's better. Like, it's more consistent in theory, but, you know, you're not going to see anything crazy. The main thing is, like, the spells that really pop are like when you cast Palm and Divine Hymn, when Divine Image is up. The heal that you get off those is actually pretty fat. You know, Divine Image can crit, and I do believe it gets your mastery, so that's nice. Yeah, so heal, flash heal, Holy Word Serenity are all 100 coefficient. Prayer of Healing and Holy Word Sanctify have their own spell up here. Renew randomly has like a really strong spell power to it. So if you have your like your Divine Image out, spamming renews isn't like, it's not like terrible, but again, because so much of your kit is baked into getting your holy words off cooldown, sorry, you really don't want to break your rotation just because of what Divine Image does. Like, Divine Image procs, guys, and there should be literally no reaction on your part. You're like, cool, you just keep casting heal. You know, just keep doing the same old thing you're doing, and make sure you hit Palm when it's off cooldown, because a lot of the healing comes from Palm, and then you just spamming heal on people. Let's see. Oh yeah, Divine Word Serenity is really good. So Divine Word Serenity could be better than Divine Image, especially on certain fights. It's just a little bit harder to use. But yeah, if you can Divine Word right before a Salvation, buffing your Renew by 30% and giving it 20% increased crit for 20 targets covered with Renew is actually insane, especially when you combo that with Renewed Faith, right? So if you can always Divine Image your Salvations in combination with Renewed Faith, it's a pretty big increase that's probably worthwhile, and would probably tip it in the favor of Divine Word. I like how they both start with Divine. Yeah, guys, the class is pretty straightforward. Not much has changed. All that really happens is a few more spells get worked into the rotation, just for fun, you know. It's powered life bullshit. you know, Holy Nova every 100 seconds. You actually want to cast Divine Star now. Oh yeah, Palm on cooldown 100%, like most important thing you can do. And I guess that's it. The only time you wouldn't Palm on cooldown, by the way, is if you're currently in Apotheosis. I don't think it's worth it then. I think I did the math for it in my head. Like 4 hours ago or some shit, and it wasn't worth it. I also did the math if like spamming Flash Shield during Apotheosis was worth it, and it's not really worth it. But, oh yeah, I forgot to mention. That's when you would want a PI, by the way. You would want a PI like 1 second before, if you see that you're at like 48 or 49 stacks, you'd PI yourself. Boom, answer prayers would proc. You get 8 seconds of Apotheosis. With the haste, you can slam out those holy words really fast and get to, you know, recharging other holy words faster because heals a slow cast, right? Actually, I just thought of it right now. If you know you're close to getting 50 stacks with answer prayers, you should actually probably save up 2 instant cast flash heals. Yeah, that would be smart. And then hard cast to heal going into it. So then you could holy word, flash heal, holy word, flash heal, holy word. You get the point, right? Like, boom, 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 boom. Nice instant cast. Action. Alright, this video is long enough. I don't know, if you have any questions, ask me. If I missed something, let me know. Like when I'm fucked up on Evoker, I'm doing these things like as much as I can. And I'm pretty much starting from no knowledge, and I'm trying to end with all the knowledge to avoid being biased or corrupted by, you know, discords and websites and stuff. So that's how I do my stuff, and then later on I'll look at other stuff and see what I got wrong. I'll try to fix it. But yeah, Holy Priest. I mean, its numbers look in theory a little bit weaker than Evoker if you're playing Evoker at like the highest skill level, but maybe that's okay. I don't know. Maybe I got some math wrong. I mean, there is a lot of really good juicy stuff with like the holy words and stuff, and maybe I did some math wrong. I don't know. But technically, the overall fight like healing raw numbers are a little bit on the low end. I know this isn't factoring in everything, but I think a Holy Priest should do less throughput than an Evoker just based off my math right off the bat, especially with the 5% nerf that just happened, honestly. So, if nothing changes, and I'll probably take another look at Evoker, it looks like I'll probably be playing Evoker over Holy Priest just based off, you know, what I've seen so far. Although I would have probably have enjoyed the heal playstyle more, just because you're actually like clicking on people that are missing health. Whereas Evoker's like you just have really long hots up and you're hoping that they heal the right people, and they're not smart hots. So Holy Priest is definitely a healthier healer, but it's slower, less mobile probably, a lot more hard cast, more consistent, all about salvs and hymns and whatnot. Whereas Evoker would just be those dual hots, right? So, alright, I'm just dragging on. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit me if you have any questions. Peace.